Don't be late, she said, lifting her wine glass slightly. We have a surprise for you, my sister said. Everyone laughed. My parents laughed the loudest. I didn't smile back. I couldn't. Something in my chest tightened in that familiar way, like a warning my body had learned to send long before I'd learned to listen. They wanted me at the family party. They insisted. They framed it as togetherness, as celebration, as love. But I knew better. Because in my family, surprise had always been code for exposure. And I was tired of being the punchline. My name is Michelle, and for most of my life, I was the person my family leaned on without ever asking how heavy it was. Growing up, our house was never loud in the way people imagine chaotic families to be. It wasn't shouting or slammed doors. It was quieter than that. The kind of quiet that means attention is being directed somewhere else. Usually toward my sister, Danielle. Her accomplishments lined the walls like museum exhibits. Dance recitals, academic awards, engagement photos enlarged and centered. When relatives visited, they stopped in front of those frames and nodded approvingly. "Oh, she's done so well," they'd say. I existed in the margins. Half visible. Cropped at the edge of group photos. The one holding the camera more often than standing in front of it. When Danielle needed something, the house shifted to accommodate her. When I needed something, I was told to be understanding. "She has more on her plate," my mom would say. "Be patient," my dad would add. I learned early that being low maintenance was the price of belonging. When Danielle had children, twins, boys, the dynamic only sharpened. Everyone celebrated. Everyone helped. Everyone. Except Danielle. Somehow, the help landed on me. "Just for a few hours," she'd say. The hours stretched. The diapers piled up. The noise filled my apartment. My weekends disappeared. My plans dissolved. My sanity frayed. And every time I hesitated, I was reminded how good I was with them. How natural it came to me. How lucky I was not to have real responsibilities, yet. I wasn't child-free by choice, apparently. I was child-free by assignment. The dinner before the party was supposed to be casual. Just family. Just food. That should have been my first clue. Danielle sat across from me, perfectly put together, already glowing with the confidence of someone who knew the room belonged to her. My parents flanked her like proud bookends. Halfway through the meal, my mom cleared her throat. "We're so glad you can make it to the party," she said, smiling too tightly. I hadn't agreed. I hadn't confirmed. I'd said I wasn't sure. But in my family, uncertainty was treated as consent. "I'm not going," I said calmly. The table froze. Danielle blinked. "What do you mean you're not going?" "I mean I'm not attending." My dad frowned. "Don't be difficult." "I'm not," I replied. "I'm just saying no." That's when Danielle smiled, the awkward smile. The one she used when she was enjoying something she didn't want to look cruel for enjoying. "Don't be late," she said sweetly. "We have a surprise for you." That laugh followed. The sound my body remembered. And in that moment I knew. This wasn't about a party. It was about humiliation. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't send messages or rehearse speeches in the mirror. I went home and sat on my bed in the dark. And for the first time, I let myself imagine what it would feel like not to explain myself anymore. The thought was terrifying. And freeing. I opened my laptop. Flights. Dates. Locations. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't hint. I didn't threaten. I planned quietly. Each confirmation email felt like a secret door unlocking. The closer the party got, the louder the house became with anticipation. Danielle bragged. My mom coordinated. My dad joked about speeches and surprises. They talked around me. Not to me. They assumed I'd cave. They always did. I watched them, from the hallway, from my bed, from the corner of the room. I noticed how my parents' eyes never lingered. How Danielle barely acknowledged my presence except to assign tasks I hadn't agreed to. How my very breathing was assumed to be part of the rhythm of their celebration. I thought about every time they had treated me as invisible. Every time I'd been leaned on, used, taken for granted. And I started making lists, not of chores, not of things I owed, but of things I would choose for myself for the first time. Each item on the list made my chest lighter. A week before the party, I bought a suitcase. The kind with smooth wheels, a hard shell, and a secret compartment that made it feel like a safe for a precious object. Business or pleasure? The cashier asked. Neither, I said. She laughed, but I didn't. This suitcase wasn't for them. This suitcase wasn't for responsibility. It was for me. 2 nights before the party, I stood in the hallway staring at the photos on the walls. Danielle's smile stared back. Soccer trophies. Academic ribbons. Engagement pictures. The twins. All centered. Perfectly framed. All attention and expectation. I turned one frame face down. The sound was small. Final. I typed a message on my phone and saved it like a secret weapon. I won't be there. Enjoy your trip. I didn't send it. Just knowing it existed slowed my breathing. The night before, the house buzzed with excitement. Suitcases stacked. Checklists repeated. Danielle ran past me with the twins, chasing them around the kitchen. My parents' voices carried. Did we pack the sunscreen? The passports? I watched quietly. My own suitcase waited in the trunk of my car, hidden beneath a blanket like a treasure. I slept deeper than I had in years. Morning arrived without ceremony. No dramatic confrontation, no slammed doors, no final speech, just the soft hum of the coffee machine and the sound of my parents' footsteps crossing the hallway. They were busy with checklists, luggage, and excitement. I moved quietly, almost reverently, like a guest in a house that had already let me go. Danielle barely looked up. The twins squealed in excitement, their tiny sneakers slapping against the floor. I stayed seated on my bed, fully dressed, hands folded in my lap, listening. 4 years, I had been the invisible hinge holding moments like this together. Today, I was just another closed door. Mom knocked once, already halfway turned away. Don't forget sunscreen, she said. I nodded. She didn't notice my backpack by the door. She didn't notice the absence of anxiety on my face. She didn't notice anything different at all. That more than anything confirmed I was doing the right thing. Outside, the morning air was cool and pale. I walked to my car slowly, heart steady, hands not shaking the way I thought they would. The suitcase was already in the trunk, hidden beneath a blanket. As I pulled away, the house shrank in my rearview mirror. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was abandoning anything. I felt like I was returning something that had never been mine to carry. At the airport, anonymity wrapped around me like armor. No one expected anything from me. No one needed help. No one assumed. I sat by the gate and breathed. When boarding began, I pulled out my phone and typed 3 words. Just 3. I didn't send them yet. I boarded the plane. And when the doors closed, I powered my phone off. When I turned my phone back on the next morning, the vibrations hit me like a drumline I hadn't rehearsed for. Missed calls stacked endlessly. Texts followed, one after another, spilling across the screen like a flood. Angry, frantic, accusing. Where are you? You embarrassed us. You caused a scene. You abandoned the family. You're selfish. I read none of them. Not a single one. For a moment, my thumb hovered over the first message. A conditioned reflex, a knee-jerk feeling of guilt, tugged at me. My chest tightened as if someone had put a hand there without asking. But I didn't open it. I couldn't. I would not. I remembered every moment leading here, every party where I had been expected to clean, to entertain, to manage everyone else's happiness, every weekend where my apartment became a daycare, every birthday where my achievements were sidelined for Danielle's, every accomplishment brushed aside as if it were wallpaper. I remembered every time silence was expected of me, every time my patience was mistaken for weakness, every time helping was treated as a permanent obligation. I didn't owe them explanations. I didn't owe them my exhaustion. I didn't owe them my life. I typed 3 words. Just 3. I chose myself. Then I pressed send. And for the first time, I let myself exhale. The rest of the trip unfolded gently, like a world that had never expected me to exist in it. I wandered through streets I'd never known, the early sun washing everything in pale gold. Cafes smelled like roasted coffee beans and sugar, the air thick with pastries baking. I walked slowly, my shoes scuffing softly against cobblestone paths, the sound grounding me in a world where no one needed me for anything. No one interrupted my thoughts. No one expected me to correct anyone. No one assumed I would manage chaos or endure tantrums or absorb the weight of someone else's responsibilities. And it was beautiful. I sat on a bench, watching children chase birds without supervision. Their laughter didn't echo in my apartment. It wasn't being projected at me. I could just watch quietly, as a stranger in a place that didn't demand anything from me. A vendor approached, offering fruit with a smile that felt like sunlight breaking through a storm. I bought some, paid, and he nodded at me like we'd known each other for years. Small kindnesses like that tasted of freedom. The hotel room I checked into felt like a sanctuary. The floor was clean. The windows framed the horizon perfectly. The ocean stretched into infinity, and the sound of waves replaced the chatter and chaos that had followed me my whole life. I unpacked slowly, deliberately. Not out of habit, but because each motion reminded me that I was here for me. Each shirt folded was a reclaiming of space. Each item placed neatly in a drawer was a tiny victory over the years of being invisible. I sat on the bed for a long time, looking out at the water. My phone buzzed repeatedly, the screen lighting up with dozens of new messages. Danielle. Mom. Dad. Their names flashed like warnings. But I didn't touch it. I didn't answer. I didn't apologize. I didn't explain. That was the plan all along. For the first time in years, silence wasn't suffocating. It wasn't a vacuum where my voice had been absorbed without acknowledgement. Silence became my choice. Silence became a shield. Silence became freedom. I spent the morning walking along the shoreline, letting the cool water lap against my ankles. Every wave seemed to carry away years of obligation I had silently borne. The salt tang of the air filled my lungs in a way that made them ache with relief. I thought of the juice spilled on my dress that night, of sticky hands tugging at me during dinners, of every time I had absorbed chaos like it was part of my DNA. I realized those stains, those moments, those obligations. They were not mine to carry. And once I let them go, I could breathe without apology. I explored the town like someone rediscovering the world for the first time. Streets twisted and turned unpredictably, shops spilling color into alleyways. I let my senses lead me. I touched fabric in boutiques. I inhaled the smell of spices at an open market. I listened to the chatter of strangers who had no reason to rely on me, and it sounded like music. I bought a small seashell pendant from a vendor near the pier. Its surface was smooth, cool, imperfectly perfect. I held it in my palm, turning it over and over, thinking of the dinner table back home, the juice, the laughter, the exhaustion that had always been assumed to be mine to bear. Evenings were long and slow. I watched the sunset from my balcony, the sky bleeding shades of pink, purple, and gold. I wrote in my notebook, words flowing like water. Freedom doesn't arrive with applause. It arrives when you stop asking permission. Each line was a vow. Each sentence was a reclamation of the life I had been denied for too long. On the third day, I ventured further, to a quieter beach where the crowds thinned. I watched the horizon, imagining the chaos back home, the twins screaming, Danielle pacing, Mom's voice trembling with frustration, Dad sighing with the weight of obligations misplaced. They would accuse me of betrayal. They would say I embarrassed them. They would say I chose myself over family. They weren't wrong. I did. But the weight had lifted. I walked barefoot on the sand, letting the water wash over me repeatedly. The tide carried away the tiny footprints I left, reminding me that I wasn't bound to anyone's expectations. Each wave felt like a promise. Meals were simple. Ice water. Fresh fruit. Bread bought from a bakery with flaky crusts. I ate slowly, tasting each bite. No one reminded me of what I owed them, of the time I should be giving. No one expected me to absorb inconvenience in silence. I watched families around me, all absorbed in their own chaos, and I realized something. I didn't need to participate to exist. I didn't need to manage someone else's comfort to be present in the world. At night, I wrote long letters in my journal that I would never send. I wrote about every birthday ignored, every achievement sidelined, every responsibility silently placed on me. I wrote about the juice on my dress, the chairs I had pulled back, the chaos I had absorbed with a smile that was never noticed. And I wrote about the freedom I was finally tasting, the kind that comes not from others recognizing you, but from finally recognizing yourself. The days passed. Slowly. Deliberately. I walked streets I hadn't known existed. I bought small gifts for myself, things that felt like rewards. A new journal. A pen that glided across the page. A necklace that reminded me that beauty could exist just for me. No one interrupted. No one judged. No one assumed I would pick up someone else's mess. When I finally returned home, I didn't go to my parents' house. I drove straight to my apartment. The space greeted me quietly. Sunlight spilled across the floor. No framed memories to remind me of invisible work. No rolls of paper demanding attention. No twins' toys strewn across the couch. Just me and the stillness. I unpacked one item at a time. Folded clothes. Placed the seashell pendant on my desk. Boiled water for tea. Listened to my own breathing for the first time in years. The phone stayed dark and silent. For the first time, no one needed anything from me. That emptiness didn't feel hollow. It felt clean. I sipped my tea slowly, watching light crawl across the floor. I realized something profound. For years, I had believed duty was love. Silence was peace. Exhaustion was proof of loyalty. I was wrong. Real peace doesn't demand erasing yourself. It doesn't require exhaustion. It doesn't punish you for choosing yourself. And in that quiet, I finally understood. Leaving quietly, stepping away without explanation, was not abandonment. It was survival. It was reclamation. It was freedom. If you've ever been the one everyone leans on without asking how heavy it is, this story is for you. Boundaries are not cruelty. Distance is not betrayal. Choosing yourself is not selfish. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away quietly, and let your absence speak louder than any argument. Because sometimes, the quietest rebellion is the one that changes everything. Moral lessons. This story reminds us that setting boundaries is not selfish, and choosing yourself does not make you unloving. There are times when saying no, stepping away, or creating distance is the only way to protect your peace and your mental health. You are not responsible for carrying the weight of others' expectations, and your worth is not measured by how much you sacrifice for people who take your presence for granted. Be brave enough to prioritize yourself, to honor your needs, and to step into spaces that allow you to breathe freely. True strength is found not in endless compliance, but in the courage to reclaim your life, quietly or boldly, and let your absence speak as loudly as your voice once did.